This is another in my series of my Christmas countdown to the end of the world. There's only 10 days left, so get your Christmas shopping done. This is one of the ways that we're told the world is going to end is a giant coronal mass ejection will come out of the sun as we pass through the plane of the galaxy and burn us to a crisp. I have a children's book here from 1933 called Understanding Magnetism. I'm going to read you from this. I think 1933 is a bit before they started to alter the educational materials. And I found something in here which was never mentioned again. And it has to do with the Earth being able to protect itself from the sun. And my theory connected with this is that the solar system is a living being, and the Earth is part of that living being. So it doesn't make sense that the sun would attack the Earth the same way, but it doesn't make sense that the heart would attack a kidney or a spleen. So this is part of the explanation of the Northern Lights, and then leads into other areas. This book is by Robert Wood, physicist. Magnetic storms and the aurora borealis, normally thought of as the Northern Lights, are directly related to magnetic phenomenon. To better understand this, you need to take a look at Earth and the area known as the magnetosphere from a distant position in outer space. From this imaginary position in space, you can see that the magnetosphere begins at an altitude of about 62 miles above Earth and extends outward to a region called the magnetopause. The shape of the magnetosphere is somewhat blunt on the side facing the sun, but has a long tail, much like that of a comet, extending from the opposite or shaded side of the Earth. The blunt shape is caused by the pressure felt by the magnetopause from the solar wind, a hot particle-laden gas speeding from the sun at almost 1 million miles per hour. On the upwind side, facing the sun, the magnetosphere extends outward to about 10 R. What is R? R equals the Earth radius, or about 3,960 miles. Simple mathematics indicate that our magnetosphere extends about 39,600 miles from the Earth. Because Earth tends to expand or flex its magnetic muscles from time to time, this distance can vary between 21,000 and 41,000 miles. Over the poles, the distance is about 45,000 miles. On the downwind side, the shape of the tail is not determined by pressure from the solar wind. If it were, it could expand into the shaded or protected areas. Its shape is determined solely by the strength in the magnetic field of the tail itself. This powerful field contains all the magnetic field lines that enter or leave from an area within about 930 miles of Earth's magnetic poles. In the southern or bottom half of the tail, the direction of lines of the magnetic field are away from Earth. In the northern half, they complete the loop or circuit and are going towards Earth. These two halves are isolated from each other by a thin neutral barrier of a low magnetic strength containing a plasma. This plasma has enough pressure to prevent the linkage of the top and bottom halves, like the traffic barriers on a freeway. In 1981, the Dynamics Explorer 1 was launched into a 15,500-mile high polar orbit from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. This satellite took some 200,000 photographs of the polar auroras. Information presented during a February 1985 International Conference on Solar Wind Interactions with Earth's Magnetic Field at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, indicated that researchers had recently discovered a huge energy zone in the tail. Lou Frank, a University of Iowa physicist, announced that researchers analyzing some of the photographs had located this large energy zone some 400,000 miles from our planet. This energy zone, it turns out, is the power supply for the Northern Lights and the Southern Lights. This invisible egg-shaped power source, made up of electrically charged particles, is 20 to 30 times larger than Earth and located about 400,000 miles downstream on the side away from the Sun. Particles from the solar wind are trapped in this energy zone, and then, through complex reactions, the voltage in this power source accelerates these particles to Earth's polar regions. As these electron and proton particles approach Earth, they are traveling about 20,000 miles a second. At that speed, it would take about a second and a half to go around the equator. These particles are packing energies of more than 10,000 electron volts. This is more than enough energy to ionize atoms. Most of the time they travel high above Earth's surface in an almost complete vacuum with little chance of a collision with an air molecule. However, as the protons and electrons approach Earth's magnetic poles at a lower altitude where the air is more dense, collisions occur. In these collisions, atoms of atmospheric oxygen and nitrogen are ionized. Ionization takes place when a violent impact changes the number of electrons normally found in the atom. When these ions recombine, releasing the energy they absorbed during the collision, light is emitted. This effect creates our mystic northern lights. This unearthly display of colors from yellow-green to reddish-purple are usually only visible from the higher northern latitudes. Visual displays can range from a red glow to a series of green curtains 60 to 70 miles tall, waving and drifting across the sky. Magnetic storms are not really a weather phenomenon, but occur when sunspots and giant flares erupt on the sun. As a result, the solar wind becomes much stronger. For a few days, the aurora is much brighter and the entire upper atmosphere becomes very disturbed. Radio and telephone communications are plagued with static. Television reception becomes distorted, and even a magnetic compass can behave strangely. It's my contention that this phenomenon is a physical rendering of how the sun powers and feeds the earth. And although this was discovered in 1985 or revealed in 1983, I've read hundreds, if not thousands, of science books on magnetism and electricity and nuclear science. Never heard of that before. Recently, one of the Viking Explorer satellites about 1,000,000 times the diameter of the sun out has discovered a layer of what they're calling bubbles. And what these bubbles do is they capture cosmic rays and spin them. And they send some of them into the solar system on straight lines to the sun. Generally, cosmic rays are unstoppable, and it's interesting to note that there's something out there that can capture them, spin them, pick out the good ones, and send the good ones onto the sun. I think there's a similar-ish phenomenon where the sun, as a living being, is being fed by something else on a higher level, which is emitting food in the form of cosmic rays, and the sun is picking them up with a mechanism we've just become aware of that is 1,000,000 sun diameters out, and this figure of 1,000,000 keeps repeating in the real cosmology. So I think these are related phenomena, and if you're willing to accept that the universe is a living thing, this makes sense. This is we are able to see how these things get reciprocally fed, and one of the problems with not being able to perceive the universe is, as a living being, is the immense difference in time scales between our lifetime, which is about 70 years long, and the lifetime of nature or planets, solar systems, galaxies, which jump up into the millions, billions, trillions, and quadrillions, and centillions of years. So we see no change on these scales, and we expect to see changes in movement in living beings. So we've called this stuff matter, as opposed to life at our speed. So I just thought I'd put it out there. It's always very interesting to me when I find information that is unique like that, and possibly suppressed information. So I don't think actually anything's going to happen December 21st. Neither do the Mayans. That's not what it's about. One guy wrote a book who said this predicts the end of the world, and a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon. The same as the Velikovsky book. He's assuming that the solar system is a bunch of flying billiard balls guilty of drunk driving. And a lot of people jumped on that bandwagon. What I'm using for a yardstick on this is one of the major oil companies was drilling 10,000 feet beneath the North Sea, and what came up in the dirt was some human remains of fires and cooked food and utensils, which means 10,000 feet below where now the North Sea sits, there was a human settlement. And we're still here. So if you divide 2 million years with the periods of the crossing the galactic plane, which happens, I think, every 13,500 years-ish, or divide it by Nibiru coming around every 3,600 years. That happens a lot of times. One of them, I don't have the math here, but one of those happened about 150 times, and the other ones happened about 67 times during that 2 million period, and 2 million year period, and we're still here. So I disagree with those who are predicting the end of the world 10 days from now.